I am very happy. First of all, I am very happy to be part of this event together with our president, Bob Deleeuw. Bob, welcome and thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thank you, Nazim. It's good to join you to speak a little bit about basketball and in particular how team and winning and those words, are depicted in the movie or in the show, The Last Dance, and how it could relate to things that we're doing at WEglobal. So thank you for that. But before we get into your questions, if you don't mind, the other presenters have all done, funny pictures, and I didn't have any, so I went and dug one out. So this, I don't know if you can see this. That's not necessarily a funny picture. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
That's Artis Gilmore. He's about 7'2". He was just recently voted the top 75 players in the NBA history, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And the funny picture is me trying to get a rebound from him.
Just above, little bit above, Bob. Yeah.
So that picture is, I was 35 years old, so it was 30 years ago, and so that's the funny picture. That's me trying to get a rebound from Artis Gilmore. I didn't do too well, I don't think. Good-looking fella, huh? So anyway, figured I'd throw in because everybody else had funny pictures.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I would like to start with the topic, the name of the topic. Why we call The Last Dance? I mean, we call our webinar's name The Last Dance, as this Netflix documentary of Michael Jordan has been very popular in Turkey and also around the world lately. I know a lot of our colleagues follow NBA and EuroLeague, European basketball, very closely, and also there is even a team in Ankara playing basketball together. So we think that it would be also fun to talk about basketball, Michael Jordan, and teamwork together. For the ones who hasn't heard or watched it yet, this documentary series is about Michael Jordan, a basketball legend, but his time is also a good example about the role of a team for being successful. So we would like to highlight the importance of being a good team in winning through giving an extreme case over Michael Jordan's documentary, The Last Dance. Bob, as I remember, you played basketball as well. I mean, you showed the picture also. Am I right?
Yeah, not as well as Michael Jordan, unfortunately. Hey, I don't know, Nazim, are you going to be able to see people who might have a question? Because if anybody has a question or wants to say anything in the middle, I can't see. And I don't like talking into a blank screen and looking at you the whole time. So if anybody has anything, just find it. But yes, hey, I did play, and I'll get into that in a second. But just to, reiterate what you just said, Michael Jordan. For anybody that hasn't, caught that show, The Last Dance is. I highly recommend it. It depicts a single player with a single focus, Michael Jordan, who was part of the team, the Chicago Bulls, in a particular time, the 1990s, when they won 6 out of 8 NBA championships. So out of 8 years, they won 6 of them, and that's very difficult to do. And that was in a time when there were some really great teams, the Utah Jazz, and New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons, some really great teams. So to have that kind of success required them to make a lot of different changes and to play as a team. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yes, I did play basketball. I played. I grew very late. I was 6'2" in the going into my senior year of high school, and I grew to 6'10", which for you guys I think is a 2.08 meters. I think. So I grew quite a bit, but I did get to play at the Division I level. I played at the same time in the late 70s that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird played. But I was about a half a dozen years or so before Michael Jordan. I did get a chance to watch him in college. So it was a lot of fun. But back, just to kind of set a point in time, when I played basketball in college in the 1970s, for you basketball fans, you'll say, what? There was no dunking allowed in the games. There was no three-point shot. You had to keep your hand on top of the ball. You couldn't do it on the side. You know, could everybody see me? I'm not sure what they can see, Nazim. Can they see me do that?
Yeah, we see you. Yeah.
You had to keep your hand on the ball. And then on top of that, we ran around in really, really short shorts and really, really high two-top socks. So it was a pretty funny thing. So the game changed a lot in the 1980s. And Michael Jordan was one of the guys who instigated that change when he was part of the NBA. So,
yeah. This is very interesting. Bob, so you remember those times of Jordan? I mean, you watched him. What do you personally think about him and his leadership?
Yeah, so he was, Michael Jordan was a rock star among rock stars. He was awesome. He really was. He was unbelievable on the court. What he did on the court was unreal. And what I really never understood, though, is other than just watching him in the games, I never really understood how motivated he was and what motivated him to win. I didn't know how driven he was. I was a New Jersey Nets fan, and when the Nets lost, I was a New York Knicks fan, just like my daughter Danielle. My daughter Tara was a Chicago Bulls fan, believe it or not, and I think she had a crush on Tony Kukoc. I'm pretty sure she had a
Yeah.
But I didn't really realize, and it came across in the show. And again, I really, for many reasons, even if you're not a basketball fan, I think you should check out The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan was singularly focused on winning, and he did whatever it took to win. And in some cases, he had to, do it himself. And in other cases, he learned in order to win the ultimate goal of a championship, he had to rely on a team around him. But I do think still that Michael Jordan was the best player who ever lived. And I know some of the younger folks, maybe even yourself, will think of some of the newer players like LeBron and some of those guys. But I think Michael Jordan was the best.
Yeah. As you say, I mean, Jordan was one of the best players in history. So, for example, I was thinking he might have thought he could force it alone. But then in Chicago Bulls, we see a good team spirit turns to be a dynasty, they call it, and a lot of other players played important role in that. Bob, how do you think they achieved this?
Yeah, so it was a lot. I think a lot of moving parts and a lot of important people, but I think the start was Michael Jordan did think he could do it himself. He was, in his mind, the only one who could do it initially, I think. And when he came in and started to play under Coach Doug Collins at the Chicago Bulls, and by the way, Doug Collins was not only a good coach, but he was a great player. I used to, when I played in college, I used to drive a bus over. We used to ride in a bus over to the Philadelphia Spectrum just so we can see those guys play. And Doug Collins was a star player in the NBA, and he was actually the first guy picked in the 1973 NBA draft. But as a coach, he basically gave Michael the ball and said, do whatever you want. And the entire offense was around Michael Jordan. They could win up to a point like that, but they couldn't win at all. When Phil Jackson took over as the head coach, he instituted what they call the triangle offense. And the triangle offense was a team-oriented offense. And it required everyone on the team to play as a single unit. And Michael Jordan really didn't like that initially. And that's even though he came from a team environment, because he played under Coach Smith in North Carolina. And I know I'm getting a little off on the some deep basketball stuff, but he played for Coach Dean Smith, one of the best coaches ever in college basketball, and he learned what it was like to be a team. But he still initially was not pleased. But then he signed up, and that showed what kind of leader Michael Jordan was. He signed up for it. He was patient with it as the pieces all came together. And the pieces came together. Jerry Krause takes a lot of hits as a general manager in that film. But Jerry Krause is the one who recognized the pieces that were needed to get in that team and all of the different role players, and he pulled them all together. The Dennis Rodmans, the Tony Kukocs, the Bill Wellingtons, all of them, the Kerr, Paxton, all those guys, and pulled them all together, and that, so that was how that all came together. But Jordan embraced it, and not only did he then embrace that concept, but he then drove every individual to get the most out of them as part of that team.
Yeah.
So, are there any? Is there anybody have any questions about that yet? Is it a time to pause, or should we just keep rolling?
Yeah, they can direct questions if they want. They can just raise their hands as well.
Yeah,
I see them all.
Okay.
They can turn on their cams, whatever they feel. Okay. Let's. We can go on.
Okay.
You mentioned about Phil Jackson, head coach of Chicago Bulls, and his this triangle offense. I mean, which forced actually Michael Jordan also into the teamwork. So I mean, I would like to also talk about a little bit about Phil Jackson as a manager, director perspective as well about teaming. Phil Jackson, I mean, is an interesting coach indeed. In the documentary, for example, we see that he is creating symbols for each season. He called The Last Dance for their last year together, for example, and this motivated all the team. I mean, in the documentary movie, players are talking about him, about the symbols he's creating, So in order to build a good team, Bob, do you think those symbols, teams, or mottos are important as Jackson did it?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I really do. I think when he learned that from Jerry Krause, it was going to be the last time they were all going to be together, he came up with that last dance. I think part of it was, to get back at, Jerry Krause. But I think that it became a real motivation. I think back when in Game 6 of the last series in 1998 against Utah, out at Utah, when the Bulls were all beat up and Scottie Pippen had a bad back, and going out there before that game, I think one of the big moments was that Jordan got everybody together and they all put their hands together and said, one for all and all for one. Mm-hmm. And this is our last dance. And, I think that theme allowed them to dig down and get that last bit of energy and to get Scottie Pippen out of the locker room when he was hurting really bad to win that game and to win that 6th series. To take it to business, back after 2001, 9/11, we had some difficulties, some significant challenges in the financial services industry here in the United States, and Deleeuw Associates took a big hit, and I remember creating a theme that I called "Survive and Then Thrive," and that was our theme going into the following year. It wasn't so much survival, meaning we were going to die, although we could have really gone down under. It was that bad, but just to survive and work really hard so that we can thrive after that. And it dawned on me just a little bit ago when Levent was was talking, and he said, Rule 100, no excuses, just solutions. And, we are, as WEglobal right now, going through some challenges. This little thing called the coronavirus is a bit of a challenge on everybody personally and as a company. And, a theme like no excuses, just solutions is, I think, a good one for everybody to embrace as we look ahead into the rest of this year and next year. So yes, I do think that those kinds of things are worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Bob, similar to Phil Jackson's themes and symbols, I have also noticed that Michael Jordan has an antagonist all the time. I mean, he sometimes even makes it up. He has sometimes conflict with the management as well, like he had with Jerry Krause. So he's always creating kind of antagonist and a motivator for himself. Do we need an antagonist? I mean, a kind of fierce rival or motivator to become a team?
Yeah, that one I'm not sure. I mean, I think everybody gets motivated differently, and not everyone needs to have an antagonist in a negative sense, but a motivator. I think everybody does better if they're motivated. Obviously, Jordan took it another level, right? I mean, you guys saw what he and Pippen did to your buddy Kukoc, right?
Yeah.
A lot of you guys are too young for that, but I remember it. I mean, they tore that kid apart when he was over in Europe. He was the best player in Europe, and Jerry Krause, the GM of the Bulls, wanted him and was going to pay anything they needed to get him. And Pippen was feeling a little dissed because he wasn't making the money he thought. And so he and Jordan just went and took him apart. Now, to Kukoc's credit, and the reason why Kukoc was such an important part of the Bulls for many years to come was he stood up to those guys. And even though he got beat up because he was a young Tiger, he stood up to those guys. And so when he did join the Bulls, they respected him, and he became a really key part. But Jordan had all kinds. He had Drexler, he had Karl Malone. Jordan was ticked off because he didn't win the MVP the prior year. You can go on and on. So he had those things that motivated him, that allowed him to get motivated. Some people are motivated by much softer things. Some people are motivated by positive things. So yes, to answer your question, I think yes, important to have a motivator, not necessarily important to have an antagonist. You know what I mean? In a negative way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he seems when he had an antagonist, he seems also he was leading the team against it. I mean, together with other players, he was attacking together with the team. So it was interesting. By the way, another interesting story in the documentary is about I think Dennis Rodman, a real crazy guy actually. I mean, as far as I remember, in the middle of the season, he burned out and then wanted to go on holiday. So, I mean, from time to time, all of us have ups and downs, I think, in the team. Sometimes, I mean, we may have really difficult people in our team and also at client side. Bob, what do you think about Dennis Rodman, and have you struggled with those people in the past in your organization or at client side?
Yeah, I mean, Levent has really been a problem, over the years. And I remember when he took off one time, I don't know that every organization is lucky enough to have somebody like Dennis Rodman. I think it showed, though, it was a good example of being a true leader, that not all rules apply to everybody the same. And that's difficult, because then somebody else says, well, if you're treating that person that way, why do you treat me this way? But in the case of Dennis Rodman, everybody from Coach Jackson to Michael Jordan, to the rest of the team, understood that Dennis Rodman was the best rebounder the NBA has ever seen. He was a very, very important, critical role player, major role player in the team, and in the whole concept of team. He needed to be there for them to win. That's what. So Phil Jackson, the coach, gave him some leeway. Rodman took a little bit more than that. And Jordan, as a leader, said, I'm going to go take care of this. And he went and dragged his butt out of the hotel and brought him back. And everything was fine. Yeah. So I think it's just a good lesson for us to not necessarily, let everybody get away with everything. But I think it's a good lesson to understand that different people are motivated differently, have different needs, and that the flexibility against those are signs of a good leader. But he was something else. I was going to wear a wig for this part of the question when you were asking me. But let's see if I had anything else in here about him. No, that's about it.
Okay. I mean, it was interesting story. I mean, I found it very interesting. He went to Las Vegas for 48 hours. The coach allowed him to go in the middle of everything, in the middle of the championship. I mean, it was very critical times, but he still did. Michael Jordan said no. As the captain, he said no, but Phil Jackson said, okay, go. And then he didn't turn back from the holiday from Las Vegas. And then,
okay. Yeah. Oh, Nazim, just one more side thing on Dennis before you move on Rodman, and this is just to tell you the importance of how critical of a role player he was. And I forget the exact numbers of times in the playoffs, but it was one of those little trivia side notes that they had while they were doing the show. There were a whole bunch of games where Dennis Rodman had scored 0 points. And in the same game had 20 or more rebounds. Now, for those of you who know what rebound, how hard it is to get 20 rebounds in the NBA, just look it up. So Rodman was unbelievable.
Yeah,
he's still unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, everybody has a role in the team actually. Someone is defending, someone is scoring. But Jordan, interestingly, I mean, he might say, okay, I don't want to deal with this guy. I can do it, I can win it alone. But he didn't say that. I mean, he went there, he dragged him back to the. He was really successful actually in the game. I mean, so Jordan was understanding the role of everybody in the team. So okay, before our last words, maybe we can ask our colleagues. Anyone has a comment or anyone? I don't know. Some of you might have watched it. We were talking about it with Levent Erkan the other day. I think he watched it also the last dance. Anyone would like to ask a question or anyone would like to say something? Please go ahead about this interview is paid. Yeet is saying this interview is paid by Netflix. Yeah, we promoted Netflix a lot, huh?
Hey, while people are thinking of whether or not there's a question, there was one interesting thing too that Jordan said. Somebody said, "Hey, Jordan, there's no I in team." You guys have probably heard that. And he said, "Yeah, but there's an I in win." And so winning. He saw that in order to win, you had to focus on it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I mean, maybe a couple of sentences, our last words before we finish. I think we have only 4 minutes to finish. we were planning to make it 30 minutes for our colleagues. I think Bob made excellent points today for the importance of being a team. I think most of us would agree. When we do have a good team and spirit, we can achieve the success. We are achieving the success. Also, I think we have a lot of disappointments when we actually fail to be a good team, although there might be some individual efforts in place. So, you know, we should understand everybody's role in the team. Sometimes big roles, sometimes less roles, but each task, each role is important for winning in this environment, actually. So Michael Jordan, I mean, our example, he was a legend in his job, but he understood the importance of being a good team and gave his best for that. And actually, he was only successful when the team is good, when the team was good. So if even Jordan, you know, is doing it, I think we should also do it. We have a very good team here, WEglobal. We are like big family. So Bob, any last messages?
Yeah, I mean, really, just relating all of that to WEglobal, you don't have to look far for your Coach Jackson. I think that Levent is your Coach Jackson, and I think that he focuses on, through his communication, on emphasizing team and emphasizing that through team you can win. I show I feel like a lawyer here, but Exhibit A is a. Can you all see that? Can you all see this email?
Yes.
Yes. It's Levent's email. I think it's dated June 4th, and I circled 16 times where he states either the word team or winning or win. So that's just a one-page email that 16 times the boss mentioned team and winning. So I don't think that you have to look too far to find your Coach Jackson and for you guys to come out of this with 6 championships in 8 years. So good stuff.
Good one. It was a good one, really. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Nazım. It was fun.
It was a privilege for me conducting this event together with you. So thanks a lot, everybody listening to us.